Welcome back, everyone. Well, you guys asked for it. Here's another ghost town tour here in Ontario. So a few miles down Opiongo Road, we're going to run into this little community called Newfoundout. So you can see some of the older buildings here, some old log homes. It is a settlement, so not a complete town, but it's a settlement of about 13 families that were basically lured here to Canada from places overseas like Ireland. They were basically told they were going to be given 100 acres of land, beautiful land that they could have farms on and just have the most wonderful life. So off they came from Ireland over here to Canada, and they settled out in these backwoods. So yeah, that was the Public Land Act of 1853. You were promised 100 acres of land. You had to build an 18 by 20 cabin on it. And you had to, basically, once you accepted the deal, you had to move here within the month and clear the land, and 12 acres of it had to be land that you would, grow crops and your veggies and things like that. So this little settlement is just west of Balaclava, where I took you guys before. There's a lot of these old settlements down on Opiongo Road. This is a little tiny road off of Opiongo called Newfoundout Road. So as you can see, the land here is sandy, it's rocky, it's heavily treed. Settlers had a lot of work cut out for them to kind of clear this land. Land was cleared out, much like you see here. This is probably some of the original cleared land. It's been maintained with cattle farmers around here. Fields are punishing, let me tell you. Super hot. Very little water up here. I'm sure there's a few creeks and there's a little marsh back there. Hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Take a look at the construction of these old log homes. Just beautiful wood from this very area. It's a lot of work. You can see the size of a lot of these logs. It's structurally not that sound anymore, but let's just have a little quick boo inside one of these old homes. Wow. Not often you get an opportunity to check these things out. Little birds living here now. So I'm told one of the first families around here was out of Narcisse Gervais in 1882. His wife and 9 kids. Not all came from Ireland, but people were basically lured here in the promise of just, there were lush forests and stuff around here with big old trees. People made their living out of logging. But the living here was really harsh. And don't be fooled, the government knew everything. They knew that this land was really difficult and very challenging. This land wasn't, there's only 13 families that ended up being here in this little ghost town. It was rough living. They had a post office at one point, I think in 1914, that they called, Donahue Post Office, but nothing much else. Like the kids literally had to walk down a gravel road 6 kilometers down this mountain to get to school. There were no hotels, no taverns, no real businesses around here to speak of. It was just the land. And you had to sort of make it yourself, You can see rock piles throughout here, all the settlers' hard work. It's not easy living out here. Forests look very different. There were a lot bigger pines here back then. Lumber years. Clearing this land was incredibly difficult. Basically like boulders everywhere, and all this ground is just sand and gravel. There's no way you could grow your corn and your tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. Basically, people just had a subsistence living. You just lived off the land. You had maybe a few cattle beasts and that's what it was. Basically, by 1948, this little settlement all but dried up. Everybody left. There was really not much here for anyone. Sadly, it's a story of a lot of these places out in Eastern Ontario. Basically in this area, a railway was built towards Algonquin Park with a big, where they were doing a lot of logging. And so a lot of people kind of moved along that way following the railroad, and Newfoundout Road just basically is just filled with a lot of these ghost towns where people left so long ago. Yep, all through these woods here, you can just see these little pastures and stuff were kind of marked off by all these rocks from land clearing. Down there, you can see another cabin. There you go. It's a little wee cabin in there. I don't know if that was an old outhouse or shed. An old shed. It's neat. Now here's a real beauty. This is the actual, one of the actual big barns through here. Now, someone else has probably put a bit of tin on that. Look at this. You guys know what that is. Nettles. My legs are going to burn. So I'm not going in there. It's good enough fence for me to keep out. So yeah, this is one of the old barns. And take a look at that. Amazing, it's still standing. Probably because someone put the tin on there. It's just not rotting out. Little pole there. I wonder what was on that. Little flag or something maybe back in the day. That's in remarkable condition. I'm really impressed. So one of the things that's pretty rough about living in Newfoundout back in the day was that little kids had to walk down these mountain roads 6 kilometers to get to school. Can you believe that? 6 kilometers. And the weather here was brutal. You know, the winters here are rough. Lots of snow, lots of cold. And going down to school down these old roads. This road's obviously been reconditioned over the years, but probably a lot narrower than this. Probably just fit a horse and buggy. But these are the woods around me here. Can you imagine getting here and thinking you're just going to be in this beautiful, oh, you're going to grow gardens just like you did in Europe, Ireland, UK. Guess again, very different. Yeah, this is really neat. This is sort of one of the edges of the pastures. You can see probably cattle because of how high this was. Shorter ones, I guess, would be for sheep. And back in there, there's now a new, looks like a new red pine plantation. So that's probably someone regenerating the land. But all along here, it's the edge of old pasture land. So that's really cool. Lots of work, obviously. And further up the road, as we kind of get into the woods here, I see some of these areas here that remind me of that very first pioneer cemetery that I toured with you guys early this summer. See this? I mean, I don't know. This could just be rocks kind of clearing from a pasture land area. But back in the day, cemeteries around here used to just be people's bodies or families' bodies, I guess, with rocks piled on top of them. So sometimes I wonder, you know, we walk through some of these forests and we don't really know we're walking on people's families from yesteryear. Not sure. Not a whole lot of them in here. But it does make me wonder where people were buried in. Around here wasn't always cemeteries like that we know today, you know, with the headstones and whatnot. It was just cairns. Not quite sure what this is or how it relates, but just found this bit of metal out here. This little open area here. This is definitely not as old as the settlement. This is a lot younger than that. Interesting. What do you guys think this is? Let me know. Amazing what you find out here in these woods. Well, the bugs are getting pretty crazy, so I hope you guys have enjoyed today's show, learning a bit about Newfoundout, one of our ghost towns here in Ontario. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them down below in the comments. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.